What's good, Hoof listeners? Welcome back to the Hoof Podcast live on Thursday at 7 tonight. It is vacation season. Yes, we take vacations this time of year just like everybody else. So that's why Anthony's in a different room.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is midsummer time, right? You got to enjoy the vacation time when you can. I'm off work this week, which has been great.
Yes.
And in my casual beach clothes, if you will, no button up today, just the polo. I got shorts on, believe it or not. And we're out at Sylvan Beach with the family, and I'm
Nice.
just in one of the rooms in the house we rent, recording tonight. But happy to be with you, man. We've been apart for the past couple of weeks, so I wanted to make sure we got this one in together.
Yes, yeah. This time of year, the schedules get a little weird with vacation and
That's
things
right.
to do outside. I think during football season, it'll be much more consistent just because colder outside. People, school's back in session. People do less, right? Less traveling. So, yeah, good to be back. Didn't have a ton of updates since the last time we talked. It seems like we didn't talk about the preseason game, which I don't even know if you want to talk about that. It's 33-6.
It's a preseason game.
Tons of stuff.
I found myself telling people, like, just pump the brakes. It's preseason. I made a $100 bet with one of my buddies that I know I'm going to win because he said it was that the Bills will finish third in the division. I'm like, after one preseason game, you're giving up on the Bills? Okay, you clearly don't know crap about football.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it, right? It's the Bills or the Bears' second game, so they had a little experience at this, right? And they're also trying to teach their rookie quarterback how to game plan, who looked amazing. Caleb Williams made some amazing throws in that game.
Absolutely. I would be, thrilled if I were a Bears fan from his performance. He looks like an NFL quarterback. You can't go wrong. And he's a rookie.
Right.
He did not look
preseason. Not going to overreact. Trying my hardest. But, Caleb Williams looked good. The Bears looked really physical. And I think they're just farther along.
Right.
Being game ready.
Second notch.
The Bills, right? Does that affect the season? Not really.
Nope.
Not really. It's too early at this point.
No major
I think
concern.
Bills joint practice, getting blown out like that in preseason in front of your home crowd, I think that will energize the room, get everybody ready, start taking things more serious, and then we'll be okay week one. That's the hope. And that was before the Matt Milano news, which we'll get into. But any other thoughts from the preseason game?
My only true concern was the punting, the inconsistency of Sam Martin and the one booming punt and then one that goes out of bounds 5 yards later. It's just, I can't stand it. It's annoying. I don't think he's a mediocre punter at best because of the inconsistency. But the one problem I've had with him is the holding for our kicker. And that's been an issue of his, it seems anyway, because all of a sudden Sam Martin and Tyler Bass is inconsistent. So I don't know if it's his holding or what's going on there, but I'm certainly not a fan of the inconsistent punting. I'd rather you be consistent and mediocre than inconsistent, good, bad, evening out to mediocre, right? I don't want a bad punt. A bad punt can cost you a score. A mediocre punt might not put you in a great situation, but it's not going to cost you a score. So that is concerning for me. It's still early in the preseason. If the Bills feel that he is inconsistent, they're not going to be afraid to cut the punter no matter how much guaranteed money he's got and find somebody else on the market. It's just a matter of, are there other competitions out there where a veteran punter is going to end up getting cut and maybe we could sign him? That's how we ended up with Sam Martin to begin with, right? So, I think that there might be options out there if the Bills feel the same way that I do about this. Then you have to worry about the holding with Tyler Bass if that guy's going to be the holder and you're just bringing him in. But again, I think that's something you pick a veteran. You wouldn't pick some guy.
Well, they did cut the punter, the competition. Who was it? Jake Browning.
Yeah.
Right. So Sam Martin right now on the roster has no competition, right? Right. So to me, that's a sign. I mean, I feel like if there was questions around the punter, they're concerned, and we'll see. It's preseason week one, so not again like any other position, not going to buy into it. But if they do bring another punter to compete, that's a sign, right? And then the door is open for somebody to take that job. But I think as it is right now, it's Sam Martin's job, and I think we're just moving forward with that. A couple other things from the preseason game. Good to see Terrell Edmonds, right? He still looks amazing out there.
Tremaine Edmonds, his brother's Terrell, but Tremaine, our Edmonds, our former Edmonds.
Yep. Yep, he looked pretty good. And then it was good to see Keon Coleman get a few catches and a few targets. He's still figuring out the NFL game, right? But you can see the ability. He's a big body, right? The ups, you can see him on the NFL field. I feel like compared to NFL corners, it kind of flashes how big he is for a receiver, right? So that was interesting to see. Again, didn't see a lot more to be seen with Keon Coleman and really the backup quarterback situation. Something, I just can't really get.
Well,
into
you bring in Trubisky because you know what he is, and he knows the team and the quarterback and the offense, but the communication there. But
and he's an athlete. Look, Trubisky's an athlete. He's had tons of opportunities. Started a lot of games in the league. But man, just like missing people by like a lot. And you're like, I know it's windy, it's Buffalo, I get it, but like this guy is all the talent in the world as far as ability and just could never get the throwing down, it seems like. You know what I mean? Just frustrating to watch.
Not what you want to see from your quarterback depth, but not a concern because you hope that guy never sees the field to begin with. And you know what his job is. It's to know the offense, to communicate with Josh Allen, to be, a coach for Allen, basically, and be ready. You still have to be ready. Speaking of being ready, the third quarterback, Shane Buechele, terrible, right?
Yeah.
Ends up getting injured. His season is over pretty much, so they have to bring in a new quarterback, and now you're bringing in anybody you bring in, somebody who doesn't really know the offense, somebody who's new to Josh Allen, and they're going to see a lot of action the rest of this preseason because you can't risk an injury to Allen, obviously, but also Trubisky. You can't risk an injury to him either. So whoever that guy is going to end up, bringing in a lot of snaps in this preseason, bringing down the value, I think, of what we see in the preseason, at least on offense. So there's some concern. Again, concern's not really the word, but, a third-string quarterback you're bringing in halfway through preseason who's going to end up being probably your practice squad guy is an important change, not a mega change or like, oh my God, but it's certainly one worth talking about. So I mean, that's another concern from that game, I guess.
Right.
In the quarterback room.
I think obviously there's a lot of rust, right? It's the first preseason game. I think joint practice this week with the Steelers. I feel like the Steelers are going to bring it because, we knocked them out of the playoffs last year in the wild card round. Extra energy there. So I expect them to look different Saturday versus Steelers, right?
Yes.
So I don't want to get into the game too much because it is just kind of the first real reps of the season. But it was interesting to see the rookies. Ray Davis. Didn't say have a great day, but again, looks the part. I would say, right? Hitting the hole, maybe not getting to the second level, but hitting the hole, and he's kind of a pounder type guy, right? And that's kind of how they're going to use him, I would say.
Right. He definitely looks like you said, running back is in a position that transitions easier to the NFL these days. Diamond doesn't even draft anybody, but he does look like a guy you can trust to actually have that role as the number 2 back on the team. Likely if Ty Johnson's injury, is the way it is right now, starting the season, he's going to be the 2. We'll see eventually how that works out, but already gaining the trust as a rookie. Doesn't look like he's still learning out there or, going to drop the ball or anything like that in his first few touches. Usually rookies have to earn a little bit more just by necessity. He might be getting touches pretty quickly in this offense. So it was good to see him out there again. Like you said, Coleman getting the touches, seeing, the running back room do what they could, all of the offense, although limited, I think we saw progression in some ways, and that's what you're looking for in the preseason. I mean, it's the first we got to see these guys like Ray Davis and Coleman and together with Josh Allen. Even Curtis Samuel, I thought, had a great day, doing exactly everything since the day we signed him that I said he would. Like, that's the most exciting move of the offseason for me, that. So it was fun to see him in the jersey.
And got a little screenplay in there, right?
Yeah. And that's going to be, I'm going to love seeing him as a Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's get into Matt Milano news, right? That's what we're all here for. Matt Milano tears his bicep. I think it was swinging in a bag, right? Wasn't even in the joint practice or in practice or anything like that. just a routine drill, tears his bicep, going to have surgery out till December at the earliest is what Adam Schefter reported.
Yeah.
So, again, that's the earliest. And, he's coming off a major injury. So the work you got to do to get back, you just feel terrible for the guy. 'Cause, that's not easy to come back like he did. And he finally gets back, and then just another random injury, right? That's almost a non-contact injury. I mean, I know he's hitting the bag and everything, but it feels like non-contact.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It sucks to high heaven because, we had to deal without him for a good portion of the season last year. And now he's pretty much going to miss the season this year. The good and the bad. The good is we know now that he's going to be out and we can prepare. The other good is that the depth chart was prepared for this too. Not in the fact that he was injured, but that he was coming back from injury and it might have to work. We've got 2 veterans with starting experience on the roster, Deion Jones, Nicholas Moreau, and now, the way Dorian Williams has looked this preseason, certainly been a high riser for me on this roster, somebody I didn't expect to be placed into that number 3 linebacker role, now probably a starting role. And, we know what he is, but that's, again, speaks to this team that maybe somebody like a Deion Jones who wasn't going to make this roster probably would have been on another NFL roster for sure. Now he's a guy that you're like, man, we're lucky we have him because he at least what you're going to get from him and you know how to train him and plan him to do so. It's not mid-season where all of a sudden you got to replace that next week and bring in somebody who doesn't know the defense and deal with, getting AJ Klein off the street and starting him in a playoff game. So,
right. We get him week 5.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, Matt Milano under contract for the next 3 years.
Yes.
Right, so he'll be out in 2024. He'll have 2 years after this season. So my question to you, and we saw this with Trey White, right? When he first went down, he's coming back, right? Went down the second time, he's coming back, right? But there's less like maybe he won't be back, right? So now, do we start having that conversation with Matt Milano where,
here's my take on that.
I mean, let's assume he comes back in December. It's basically a little over a year and a half of no NFL football. I mean, it's just hard to keep pace, right? Because you can't work out the same way, right? So you're going to be, A, will you be the same player? B, are we talking about Matt Milano not being in Buffalo the next couple seasons, right? So next year, probably.
Few points to clarify there. 2 things immediately. 2 different parts of the body, right? Leg injury, bicep injury. That's actually better in my mind because it's not like Trey White who had, 1 leg injury and then a re-aggravated leg injury that's kind of indicated, okay, double ACL, this is bad. This is not going to be recoverable. Basically, what's he going to be? It's a much longer timeline. There's weakness there, clearly. This is a bicep freak injury and a leg injury that was complicated and we still don't have all the details about. But, I do think that's better for his overall conditioning. He can still rehab his legs now that he's hurt his arm, right? And, I think that we'll see that progression from any player. That's a good sign there. But for me, it's Matt Milano and what he means to this team as a leader on the field, as a difference maker, as an all-pro. Yes, Trey White was all of those things too. But Milano, it's the contract that's favorable, right? Milano's contract to the market is ridiculously stupid, right? He's definitely a top 5 starting linebacker in the NFL at his position. He's paid $10 million, right? I mean, when we signed that deal, that was a unbelievable team-friendly deal at the time, and that was 3 years ago, right? So now it's even better, right, to be in a position where you're under contract for that long. There's no way you're giving him up. You would have to pay a replacement more than what you're paying him to come in and try and be Matt Milano. And that's if you cut him.
Yes, right? That's a good point.
It's just not worth it. You keep him on the team. I don't care if he's gone all this year. You wait till next year. Then, I believe the contract out is after 2025. So after next year, it'd be easier to cut him. Now, we know the Bills obviously aren't shy about cutting guys like Trey White if they needed to for, just thinking it's not going to work out, and for what you're
Right.
paying.
A little different scenario too. Like they knew they had to
Yes.
flip the roster. The roster's aging.
Again,
Right?
in terms of the money, though, you're not getting nearly the play you would get from even a half of Matt Milano for that money, right? Especially in today's market, the way things are going. So Matt Milano is not going anywhere on this team, and nor should he. I think he stays as long as they can fulfill this contract, to say the least, and then go from there and see if you want to re-sign him for a few. Plus, linebacker versus cornerback in terms of, speed and aging into the position, I think that Milano has an advantage there to a Trey White. But, we're not comparing the two, but even just, we are comparing the two, but not directly because they're different positions. I think Milano is a completely different situation in that, although it does bring back the star player energy of what do we do after losing this kind of guy.
So the fact that he'll likely be in Buffalo, to your point, with the favorable contract, right? He's locked up for a few years. But again, going into next year, you're not going to know if he's the same player until mid 2025. Assuming he comes back in December, can't imagine he's going to be the same player this year. I think that's off the table, right?
Sure.
2025, he's going to have to, again, we're looking so far ahead. He's going to have to work so hard to get back to, kind of the player he was, right? Making the impact.
I think if he has a normal offseason to recover, though, that'll help, right? Maybe most guys go home and rest, whatever. He's not going to. He's going to rehab that entire offseason next year,
right.
And
but you're basically, you're 2 years behind the people who stayed healthy in the league, right? It's just so you got to put in a little more to get back to where you were, in my opinion. But we're not going to know the answer to that till next year. So that's definitely a challenge. So then we're back to where we were last year. Like, who's replacing Matt Milano on the defense? Sean McDermott's high on Dorian Williams. Dorian is going to do a good job. He's been making progress, McDermott said. Not only is it his time to step up, but all his teammates to step up. It's not just one person to fill the void of a player like Matt. It's time for our team to step up. So that brings in the conversation. I think we saw Dorian Williams make progress last year. Less thinking, more doing. I feel like in the playoffs, he was doing a lot less thinking. So that will likely transfer over. And I think he's probably the first choice. If you're Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbage, you want Dorian Williams to step up and take that role, right? But then you have, what's different from last year too is, they relied a lot on Dotson, veteran, kind of a veteran, career backup type linebacker. He had a lot of tackles, for the team. So he really did fill that gap a lot. He's gone. But now you have two veterans, Deion Jones and Nicholas Morrow, who you could look at. Kind of what way are you leaning here? Do you think any of those veterans have a chance to kind of get ahead of Dorian, or you think it's Dorian? We're gonna put you out there week one and kind of see where you're at.
I think McDermott has made it clear that Dorian Williams is the 3 and is there to fill in. So I think he will be elevated to starting level. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean he's out there for every snap like a Matt Milano would be? Maybe not. So I do think it means now more opportunity for one of those veterans, Moreau or Deion Jones, to see time on this team, right? They might both make the team now, and now they're seeing a lot more snaps on defense than maybe they expected. Moreau has the special teams edge, so I think that could help him. Deion Jones has been playing with the 3s, and I've been trying to figure out why that's the case. I messaged some of the reporters to say, like, why? What is the deal? I haven't heard any reports as to why.
It's a good point, because it's interesting because he's been in the league a long time. This guy's been a Pro Bowler for Atlanta. I think he missed 2 games. Let's see, 2016, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he missed 2 games in 6 years.
Yeah. So
he started every single game that he was eligible to play in 6 years. The way to say that, which means he's a starter, bona fide starter with Atlanta. Yeah. And then something happened in the offseason of 21. He ended up in Cleveland on the injured reserve. Only started 5 games, played in 11, and then basically was moved to Carolina. I think he was waived in Cleveland, sent to Carolina, where he only started 3 games, appeared in 13. But again, lost that starting job and hasn't been able to get back. And now it's, there's talk of him being with the 3s. So not really sure what happened to him along the way. He's still under 30 years old. I think he's 29. So it's.
Yeah, there's something, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. If there's something on the field that stands out to the coaching staff, I would love for these reporters to ask McDermott about him specifically and get us a more clear answer, because that was already a position that I'm looking at like, okay, if you're asking me what surprises me, that stands out. Like, I thought this guy was going to make the roster as a backup, potential plug and play starter should we have an injury like we do now. And here we are talking about the rise of Dorian Williams and the fall of Deion Jones. So those two things going hand in hand tells me Dorian is definitely the guy who's going to get the snaps. And I have to give props and shout out to our guy Izzy, who's filled in a couple times and been a guest on our show a couple of times from Built in Buffalo. Izzy, he calls him the green turtle shell in Mario Kart. I love that comparison to Dorian Williams because it totally makes sense. Super high energy, super go after gung-ho guy, gonna hit the ball carrier hard, gonna go after it. But in doing so, sometimes he whiffs and there's a play made because he goes one way and the ball's going the other, and there's no stopping that green turtle shell, right? So
yeah.
And he keeps saying we want to turn him into that red turtle shell that chases after where the ball is and hits the person ahead of you no matter what.
Good,
right?
Good
so
buddy.
yeah, I love that analogy because it totally makes sense for the player he is. He's such a high energy guy. Can you harness that and now teach it? Whatever's happened in this preseason, again, we're not there every day. The reporters can only say so much. The coaching staff has fallen in love with this guy. And that tells me that he has grown from that only burst of energy guy to, okay, there's something that stands out with him on the field that they've 100% got his confidence to be the next guy up. And all indications from the joint practice today were that Dorian Williams had a great day going out there and showing why he should be the guy. So that is already promising to me. And it's going to be interesting to see how the back half of it plays out now at linebacker, because do you keep both guys and at the expense of another roster spot? Last week, if you had told me neither one of those guys would make the roster, I probably wouldn't blink twice. I'd say, yeah, okay, that's okay with me if that's the way the Bills feel. Now I would say one of them definitely makes it, and maybe both of them. So
right. I would agree. Yeah, because I think the mistake they made last year is they're a little too thin at linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
You had AJ Klein in there in the playoffs that you just ran out of people, right? Yeah. It's a physical, playing linebackers very difficult in the NFL, and there's a lot of injuries associated with that. When you play teams like Kansas City with 3 tight end sets, right? Like they just run you over. Then Nicholas Morrow, another interesting case study because he started a lot of games for Philadelphia last year, right? He had, there was a period of time mid-season, week 5 to week, 8, where he's kind of 50-50, maybe in some packages on third down, but then he's primarily playing special teams. So 50% of the snaps are on special teams. And then that changes. So, weeks 1 through 5, or 1 through 4, he's starting and he's doing a little bit of special teams and the same thing towards the end. So, this guy's started, played a lot of snaps. I mean, seems like a versatile guy playing special teams and kind of those packages. So again, I don't think it's going to be like a Dorian Williams. He's the guy in every single play. There's going to be some packages in there. You have those options this year because you have more depth at the position, right?
Yes.
Not to mention Ulafolo, 5th round pick out of Washington.
Eddie Ulafoscio.
Yeah.
Yes. And he's been injured as well. So the talk around him has been, is he going to be one of those IR stashes, of like, oh, he's hurt, we're going to put him on the IR and basically redshirt him his first year in the league, right?
Right.
Now you're right that maybe they decide not to do that, or they designate him as one of the return people because they know they're thin at linebacker and they're going to need contributions. And this is a guy who you drafted because you had high hopes for the growth that you could see from him. And maybe he's this year's Dorian Williams, where it's like, okay, you're not the starter, but you're coming in and playing legitimate snaps and having an impact when you're called upon. So I could see that role, would love to see that role from a guy like Ulafoscio if it comes down to it. If he makes the roster, if he's healthy enough to get in the practice reps and show the coaching staff enough to be that guy to gain that trust.
Yeah, again, I think for him it's probably special teams or bust, but I think, Deion Jones makes the roster. I think that's the big news with the Matt Milano injury. How much he plays, I don't know, but I think he's there, kind of as a backup. A lot of reps in the league, so he can kind of be that mentor as well. Added value there. Morrow, I think was going to make the roster regardless, so I think you'll see him in kind of some defensive packages more than maybe before. If Matt Milano's playing, I think Morrow's more of a special teams guy, but I think now he'll have a bigger role on the defense, right? But then, it's all Dorian Williams. It's his opportunity, right? Like we talked about. Yes. I think he's going to get the first shot at it, and we'll see how that goes.
Shades of Terrell Bernard last year, where everybody's like, who's starting at linebacker? What? Terrell Bernard? What? We're trusting him? And here we are again in a situation where Terrell Bernard is now the cemented starter guy, and now you're looking at the guy next to him saying, who's it going to be?
Right.
And Dorian has that opportunity to step up. And again, he's showing it to the coaching staff. So he's got to prove it come actual game day, week 1 and on. But we'll see. We'll see how that comes. I'm not worried because of what we saw last year after the surprising loss of Matt Milano and the team being more prepared for it this year. Last year when we lost Matt Milano, I was like hitting the panic button. Like, that's our best player on defense. I don't care what anybody says. Guy on the field, defense always better with Matt Milano on the field. Always. Matt Milano good, Matt Milano on the field, defense good, Matt Milano off the field, defense bad. Well, last year, Sean McDermott was able to work coaching magic and take that team without Matt Milano and still make it a strong defensive unit. Now, they gave up a ton of plays that every game pretty much, but they held their own so that the offense could do its thing to win games down the stretch when it mattered most. So that, to me, being able to do that last year without a Matt Milano, being more prepared for it, having much better opportunity to plan for it this year, knowing what's ahead of you, is a much better situation to be in. So I'm not like freaking out that, oh my God, there's going to be this hole in the defense. No, we didn't see that before. I don't think we'll see that now. But you can't replace a guy like Matt Milano. I mean, you're not going to get what you could have with him on the field. The defense is not going to be what it could have been with a Matt Milano in it, but it's still going to be good in my mind. Good enough to win games, good enough to stop good teams.
To me, it feels like an uphill climb a little bit, right? This Matt Milano news is big, right? Because there's always safety's a little weird, but Matt Milano's back. The linebacking core is back. We're expecting Von Miller to be back to who Von Miller is,
right?
But again, I think this is a setback in that line of thinking, right? You're Matt Milano's kind of the star of the defense. You're expecting him to come back, and that's now gone. There's still a lot of questions around Mike Edwards at safety, right? He got injured a second time, so now is he going to even contribute? Is the question, right? There's still questions at corner. Like, I think our cornerbacks are solid, and Douglas and Benford. But again, can you rely on Kyer Elam to be number 3? We know that Taron Johnson
camp.
Yeah, I mean, training camp means nothing, right?
True.
You got to go out there and guard the,
yes,
who's on Arizona these days.
But
Zay Jones. You'll probably guard Zay Jones.
I'm happier to hear about that than I am the safety room, right? I think the cornerbacks with Elam and Ingram both playing very strongly in the preseason and seeming, again, to what the reporting and the coaching staff is telling us, those two guys are doing their job and then some, surpassing expectations even. I'm more worried about the safety room where these injuries are piling up. Cole Bishop injury, and you got the Edwards injury you talked about. DeMar Hamlin, yes, he stepped up. Yes, he looks good. But are we ready to see, Taylor Rapp? Obviously, that's somebody I've been concerned about. I need to see more from the guy.
Is this who we're going to trot out there on the
exactly,
field?
Right.
Is this it? Is it going to be Hamlin and Rapp?
That's going to be it. Week 1, if you ask me. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Simmons just signed with Atlanta, right? So how about Atlanta, man? Trading for Judon, signing Simmons. They were already in the conversation for me going to the NFC Championship game. Now they're there. I think they're competing with the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. By the way, that's a good preview to say, the Hoof, we're bringing you our division breakdown pretty soon before the season. Every division, we break it down. We give you our thoughts. We give you our rankings. And this is a spoiler. I'm high on the Atlanta Falcons. I was before. Maybe I'm a Kirk Cousins guy because I was high on him when he was with Minnesota and nobody else was. And I said they were going to be good. And that what happened there. And now this Eagles situation, I just feel is even, or Falcon situation is even better for him. Side tangent there, but just to promote that we will be doing our division preview, and I am still excited about the Falcons.
Right. Do it every year heading into the week 1, right? So
yeah, we'll
breaking down every division. Yeah, that's always a good time.
But to bring it back to the Bills, there's not a lot of – there were safeties out there. There's still some guys out there, but it's getting later and closer to the season, and that is the position where my confidence is like, but everybody would say the same thing. Oh, Justin Simmons is still out there. Oh, what's his name? Who was with Seattle is still out there. There's names out there on the market, right? So it's like, oh, we're safe there because we could always just bring in somebody to be the guy.
Right.
Like, no, that's not how it works. You have to learn the defense.
It's not Madden, right? It's not plug and play.
Exactly. So I mean, it's
you gotta get familiar with the system, and I think there's a lot of communication in this system. So that takes a while to learn that, right? So again, Hamlin and Rapp have been in this system longer than the others, so I think they have the head start, and that's probably why you're seeing them on the field. They know how to do the communication, work as a team. You'd love to see somebody kind of take that over. Like, we were hoping Mike Edwards would be that guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, how long until you call Micah Hyde? Right?
Micah Hyde has got to be on speed dial, man.
He's got to be on speed dial.
It's like, he is the one guy you could call at any point and just plug and play because this is literally his defense. It's his role.
All right, Roy, here we go. Milano being out sucks, but I don't believe this team is a Super Bowl contender this season. I'm not concerned with injuries this year.
I don't believe Roy. I mean,
the only thing that makes you think they can get to the Super Bowl is Josh Allen.
What? What are you talking about? Are the Bills going to win this division? Let's start there. I don't know what Roy thinks, but I'm telling you, yes, is my thought. Yes, the Bills will win this division. Miami has it. They're good. They're competitive, but they
right. Okay. They can get over the hump. They can win the division.
Are but like tire fire. I don't care what the hype says. They're going to be terrible.
None of that matters. If you're trying to get to the Super Bowl, you got to beat Kansas City. Right. That's the big conversation. But like the way the roster is right now, they didn't have to change much. Right. They're better than they were last year just by signing 2 people. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean,
so I feel like winning the division. Sure, we can talk about that. The division.
You're in the playoffs. That's my point with that.
That's fine. Right? But you're going to get your shot at Kansas City.
Okay.
Can this roster beat Kansas City? I mean, I don't think they have as big of a chance as they did last year when you're looking at the roster and the talent.
I could agree with that, but it's a whole new year, okay?
But what I said in the beginning was Josh Allen's anytime you have a Josh Allen, you have a shot at the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Right? And that's the only thing keeping us as Super Bowl contenders, right? And
well, I mean,
I think when you play Kansas City, sure, you may be outmatched in a lot of areas, but Josh Allen can take over a game. And that's kind of what you're relying on. And it's a little bit frustrating because I feel like the last few years, the big talking points and narratives have been, Josh Allen, you got to take the pressure off Josh. There's too much on Josh, right? But I feel like with recent events, it's going to be all on Josh this year.
I'm confused about that, though. You have no faith in the defense to play defense?
I mean,
say
sure.
The offense only puts up 17 points. That's not a great game for
sure. I mean, but I think we're looking at a defense that's comparable to last year, which I don't think is a top 5 defense. I think we're looking at middle of the road, right? 10th, 13th as a ranking.
Okay. 10th maybe, yeah.
Which I think is reasonable, because they just don't have the talent.
So you're with Roy on this one.
Well, again, what I said was when you have a Josh Allen, you're always a Super Bowl contender. But is this team improved from last year at this point? I don't see the improvement.
What? Josh Allen's weapons are better this year than last year. Josh Allen, are you kidding me?
I mean, it remains to be
Dalton
seen.
Kincaid, a healthy Dawson Knox. You've got Curtis Samuel to go with Khalil Shakir. Yes, you lost Diggs, but we all know how that saga went. The weapons are better this year. Your running back situation,
you can't say the weapons are better. I don't think you can say that. Stephon Diggs got 1,500 yards a season in Buffalo.
Last year he wasn't. You're saying, are we better?
Well, what's he at 1,200? I mean, nobody on this roster is getting 1,200 yards this year.
What? He didn't have that last year. He had 600. Come on now. You don't think that he's replaceable in this offense? The sirens are going off in the background for this call here. That's what's happening right now. They're like, wait a minute now. Now we're gone off the rails here. The Bills are a damn good offense, The Bills are a damn good defense, and I don't care what anybody says, that puts you in Super Bowl contention. If you want to join ESPN and say, oh, we're off the rails and we're not good enough to be there, you're being absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So Diggs' production last year, 1,183 yards, 8 touchdowns, and I got it. Like, there's not one single receiver that's going to have that, and I don't think that's the expectation, right? But again, that's big shoes to fill. I mean, I don't know if
you sound like ESPN when you say that. We're talking.
But
about
I mean, it is. This is facts, though. I mean, sure, we're expecting Khalil Shakir to make a jump, which I think
Kincaid,
he will. And sure, Kincaid, but Kincaid really acts as to me, he seems like Josh Allen's check down, right? That's what his role is. I don't think he's going to go in and, have a Travis Kelce like
Curtis
season.
Samuel on the other side of a Khalil Shakir. Let's just start there.
Sure, Curtis Samuel's always been a number 2 receiver.
I don't care what anybody says. Give me those 2 guys and a bunch of poles on the field to block, and I'm throwing it to one of them every single time, and one of them is making a play and getting yards after the catch every single play, and there's nothing you can do about it. With just those 2 guys.
Well, I think you had that last year, though.
Everything else.
You had Shakir last year. You had Diggs doing that last year.
But Diggs was totally off balance with Allen. You know this team. After the second half of last year, he didn't exist.
Joe Brady was asking him to distribute the ball around, right? Don't force the ball to Diggs. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Diggs did not like that. Do you think Khalil
sure.
Shakir or Samuel's going to care if they don't get the ball for a game? No, they're going to be happy. They're going to be like, great, we won the game.
No, I'm not saying they're not going to get the ball, but I mean, can this team go to Kansas City in the playoffs and win? That's the big question. Now Matt Milano down. I'm not seeing it. Then we're not even talking about Houston, Cincy, Baltimore. I mean,
you're talking matchup.
I just think when you compare the top teams in the AFC,
who you're worried about? I mean, you're always worried about Kelce, but sure. What about Matt Milano being out makes you think Kansas City is that much more of a threat because of the Kelce situation? I mean, that's the only player I could think of that you're like, oh, now Kelce would have only put up 60 yards versus Milano. Now he's going to put up 120. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, that's the difference in the game.
What receivers scare you on that team?
Well, I think a big reason that Kansas City was able to move the ball so efficiently versus the Bills in the playoff game in particular is the linebackers couldn't keep up. Right? The tight ends are beating the linebackers. So, again, we have a thin linebacking core, it feels like. Again, Deion Jones.
Terrell Bernard didn't play in that game. Come on.
I mean, that's fine. But, again, will he move the needle on defense? I'm not real sure. Now, Milano and Bernard together, that felt good. Right. Then you have the depth behind that. That felt really good. That's now gone. And now there's uncertainty again.
Yeah.
And then you start looking around. Okay,
corner. Line isn't that much better. I mean, come on.
You're one cornerback injury away from Kyrie Elam being the starter, which is concerning. I mean,
no, it is not.
I don't know how you can say that. He hasn't played. We don't know. Nobody knows. Right. He hasn't played enough. And then you look at safety. And now we have, Cole Bishop injury, Mike Edwards injury. And look, they'll recover. They'll be back. We kind of don't know what they are, but you're missing.
When you go from Poyer and Hyde to not Poyer and Hyde, I don't care who it is, you're going to have a setback. And now, yes, safety, that's the one room that concerns me because I don't know what to expect there. And what I saw from Taylor Rapp did not impress me enough to crown him the next Poyer. Right. So I'm not happy about that, but we're going to see how that works out. The unknown, Hamlin played well when he was the starter. He wasn't some phenomenal guy, but he's improved. He's learned. He's doing better this year.
But you look, I think everyone's playing well, but who's making plays on defense?
Am I comfortable with it? Probably not. But Terrell Bernard is a playmaker. Christian Benford is a playmaker. All of our cornerbacks are ball takers.
Von Miller, Ed Oliver, sure. But
I didn't even go to the D-line yet, and that's where I think you're missing completely. The D-line this year, the pass rush and the interior is way better than last year.
How so? Because they look the same to me. It's the same players. Austin Hooper moves the needle, maybe. I mean,
you've got a healthy interior. Okay, we can start there, right? Now, if you're going to the exterior, yes, you still have the 2 guys. You got a better Von Miller. Right, you got Javon Solomon, who looks like a young kid who's going to have impact, which is what we thought he would be. He's not going to be in there every play.
He looks the part, short arms.
Yeah. Sure, you've got guys that are going to play better in the positions that they're being called to play on. And again, this is the off season. We're still preparing for this. Last year, we didn't prepare for Von Miller to be nothing. This year, we're basically prepared for Von Miller to not contribute, knowing that he will contribute. So that's good. Yeah. That's a much better place to be in. And I don't, the back end of that room, with Kingsley Jonathan or whoever else makes it for that back end, that's still going to make me feel better than I did last year about this defensive line.
Well, I just think when you look around the AFC, you start comparing rosters, right? And look, I know Josh Allen can take over a game and beat any one of these teams. I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying that the season's over for the Bills. But, man, that Baltimore team has a lot of good players. Right, there's a lot of people to rely on in that roster. I feel like Kansas City upgraded their roster this year, right? Their defense was top 3 last year. I mean, I know Marquise Brown going down, but again, you had a speedy guy. But they've proven they can win without.
I don't think any of us are doubting the fact that Kansas City was not the best team last year and could have easily been beaten last year.
So, like, that likely carries over, though, I would assume. There's no reason not to assume that anymore. And then Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's back healthy. Again, there's lots of people on their roster to rely on. You know what I mean? Especially on offense for them. But you look at the Bills, I mean, it's less people that you can truly rely on. There's more uncertainty. People who have to build the trust with the coaching staff, the fan base, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of unknowns is what I'm saying, which doesn't feel good. And I think with Matt Milano going out, it really doesn't feel good for me.
We just went through the whole D-line you just said came back.
And we came out with the same answer. I mean, okay, can Curtis Samuel lead a team in yards receiving?
Absolutely.
He hasn't done that in a long time. He's only had one 1,000-yard season his whole career.
He was playing with you and I at quarterback.
Yeah, but he hasn't done it is the point. So, again, there's unknowns.
That's because you and I were throwing him the ball.
You see reports in training camp every day. Can Keon Coleman get separation? That's the big focus,
Who's talking about Coleman? You and I have already established what Coleman is. He's going to be there later in the season. He's not going to contribute right away. He might be there for a play or two where it's important.
Right.
He's a
but
rookie.
You got to win games early, too. Yeah.
Sure you do, but it doesn't have to come from him when you have the likes of Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel has plenty of experience, both of those guys. Plus you've got Kincaid, plus you've got Knox, plus you've got Hollins, other guys you can rely on for plays. Again, you're going to the back end here. Yeah, Hollins, if you have 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends on the field, that's when you need Hollins. And then maybe Coleman, yes, in the red zone early on or a play here or there. But the guy doesn't need to be out there for multiple snaps. He's learning. He's going to get covered. You want him to see what he can do.
Yeah.
But it's no concern to me that guys are plastered all over Coleman. They should be, because you got to teach the kid. He's not going to learn without getting, tested. So it's not going to happen in game action, though. He's not going to be there, especially early on. So much more confidence in the rest of those guys.
Yeah. Again, there's unknowns. So I just don't know who you're going to rely on third down. Who's the go-to on third down? The stuff we'll find out, but I'm just pointing that out. It doesn't feel great right now, like it has in previous years. Like Diggs and Allen will make the plays, right? You kind of know that's going to happen. They're unstoppable. They have been in the last 4 years. I feel like that's there's a missing void there. So let me ask you this: Does Corey Davis move the needle for the Bills at all?
Are you kidding me? No.
He's getting a tryout with Buffalo. Now look, just the same argument with Curtis Samuel. This guy played in the Jets, and he went through so many quarterbacks there. That again, did he get a fair shot in New York?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? But this is the same as the Claypool experiment that just ended, right? You brought in Chase Claypool. Hey, here's a guy who once had a good season and showed a lot of potential, but guess what? He's trash. He can't do it. He's hurt again. Did not work out. So you cut him. He went on the IR. They've got a settlement. He's gone. He can sign with any team maybe, or sign back with the Bills after 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's free.
Rule. But the point is that experiment did not work. People praised it. Oh, there could be something here. Corey Davis, you're talking about a guy who hasn't even played, gotten playing time. Is he something? Maybe. Is he going to be something for this Bills? Sure. Even if he made the roster, he'd be what? A return man maybe? A guy who could come in as the 6th wide receiver for 5 plays a year? Sure. I'm okay with him being that. There's nothing wrong with that. You're still looking for that return guy role because there's been some inconsistency there. And we didn't talk about it when we reviewed the game, but that was another thing that stood out.
Who's the best quarterback that Corey Davis ever played with? Is it Marcus Mariota? 2017 Tennessee, 2018 Tennessee.
You're right. Yeah.
2019 Tennessee, 2020 Tennessee. 21 was the Jets. Would have had what? Darnold or Zach Wilson at that point. 22 with the Jets. This is before Aaron Rodgers, who didn't even play anyway, so it wouldn't matter if it was Rodgers.
Yeah, but it was.
So again, those Tennessee, I think it was Mariota's in there. Who else? There's probably.
Point being, it's a wild card, right? You're talking about, okay, here's a guy, maybe he's got something, just like Claypool to me. Okay, yeah, you can make him the sixth receiver, but I don't want to see him in there making plays, basically. Maybe he'll catch a touchdown pass. Maybe he'll have a specific role for returns or whatever it may be. That's an impactful role and a meaningful one. You know, a guy who's going to touch the ball multiple times a game. But I just, you know, it's not like I'm thinking he's going to be the guy all of a sudden because the Bills are giving him a chance. No.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, if KJ Hamler gets a chance with all he's been through, he's been cut from like 4 or 5 teams. I feel like Corey Davis gets a chance. You know, I think that's fair.
Sure.
He's got a lot of ability, played a lot of football. But again, I think he hasn't had a quarterback. It looks like Mariota for the most of Tennessee, though, by the way. So again, he hasn't really had a fair shot at all. So it'll be interesting. I mean, again, not getting the hopes up, but he's what they want. He's a big-bodied receiver who can use his body as leverage, and that seems to be the direction the Bills are going with everyone on the roster. But anyway, I know you got to get going, so that was fun.
Always good to talk roster, but have confidence in these Bills, okay? Have confidence in the coaching staff. Have confidence in the roster. This team is better than people are giving it credit for, and I can't wait for the season to come to show that, right? And then
and that's just where I'm at with this roster. Like, I have to see it now. You know what I mean? Where I was thinking years past, like, oh, I know I have faith the Bills will figure it out and I can sleep well at night. I feel like this year it's like I need to see it. So that's coming. We'll be here weekly to talk about, you know, the updates, rumors, news up until the season. Look for our episodes. We're going to be talking about the divisional breakdowns. We'll go through every division, make our predictions. Yeah. Who's the winner, who finishes last for each division. And then we'll get you ready for Arizona week 1 here in a few weeks, coming up quick. So
it's fast.
Yeah, but that's every Thursday, 7:30. You know, we have vacation this time of year, so we adjust it to 7. You know, but 7:30 is our normal time on Thursday. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate the conversation, and we'll see you next week.
That's right. And as always, thanks for kicking it with us. Go Bills.